later on.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I yield back.
Jim's time has expired. Ms. Plaskett, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here, and congratulations on your confirmation last month. We're very pleased to have you working with us on the issue of agriculture. First, of course, I have to touch on a local issue since I only have 5 minutes. I want to make sure that I take care of my people first.
That's what representative government's all about.
Well, let me, of course, first let you know everyone has invited you to their districts, but I have the best district to invite you to, the Virgin Islands. And we've extended that invitation as well to the chairman. Chairman Conway, with your additional responsibilities, I'm sure you need a field trip now to the Virgin Islands more than ever. Mr. Secretary, one of the things that our local farmers are concerned with, and I spoke with our Commissioner of Agriculture just recently about this, the USDA has many offices that service the Virgin Islands, but do so not in the islands themselves. For example, the Farm Service Agency support is funded and administered through Florida, and our NRCS services depend on the USDA staff housed in Puerto Rico. That's of particular concern to us because we are having a growing and burgeoning agriculture sector, and we want our farmers to have the technical support and the assistance that are needed. So we rely heavily on staff from Puerto Rico to travel to the Virgin Islands to provide that assistance. And we have had problems getting them to come to the Virgin Islands often enough due to travel restrictions, budget shortages, and for other reasons. For example, one of the key irrigation engineers has not been in the Virgin Islands in over 2 years, and there have others who have not been to the island of St. Thomas in over 3 years. If NRCS's Puerto Rico budget is further cut, the Virgin Islands stands to be set back even further from where we are in our rural economy and our rural growth. And I'm asking for a commitment from you and your office to work with me in our local agriculture office on issues of deficiencies and where we can meet the needs of access to USDA services for our farmers and also for our cooperative extension services at our university, which does an amazing job, but also lacks that support. And so I'd love to be able to call on you and those within your office to assist us in that.
I hope we can learn more about the specific issues and how we can maybe build a team to come and to assess that. I can't commit right now to redeploying assets there, not knowing where they are currently, but I can assure you that the burgeoning agriculture in Livingston Virgin Islands is really just as important as Puerto Rico or other places, and the technical expertise that you know is needed there, whether it be irrigation technology or other things, we look forward to providing. I'd love to get more specific information about those specific needs and look at deploying a team there to maybe hear from your people about how we can do a better job that way.
Great. I'd love that. Would appreciate that. I know that there's been much discussion about the position in terms of rural development and how it's going to be administered. When you say, and just as this is probably the lawyer in me asking for specifics, if you say that the assistant secretary who's going to be dealing with rural development, that it will be a Senate confirmed, will that be below the undersecretary, or is that reporting directly to you? How would that structurally be done?
It's a good question. That assistant secretary will be a direct report to me. It will manage the 3 mission areas of rural development, both utilities and community facilities, water, and other areas there. They will report up to her. It will not be reporting to an undersecretary. The reason I wanted to elevate that because, as I indicated earlier, I don't consider myself a micromanager, but I do consider myself a hands-on manager.
Gotcha.
And this was an area of rural development with a lot of resources, the ability to provide leverage a lot of resources out to communities with, frankly, a good deal for the American taxpayer. It's negative subsidies in most of these cases. I'm very, very impressed with the banking experience of our rural development people in that regard. So
excellent.
I'm just curious enough and jealous enough, I wanted to be involved in that, and that was the best way I knew how to do that.
Excellent. And will that assistant secretary have other areas in their portfolio outside of rural development?
No,
Okay.
just that rural development piece. That's a pretty big chunk and a big responsibility. So all that, I'm just going to be their assistant.
Thank you. And then the last thing was regarding rural broadband. When we talk about the minority leader in the Senate, I'm talking about an allotment for rural broadband deployment. And under the Senate proposal, rural broadband funding is going to be available to projects currently eligible under existing programs in the Department of Agriculture. Is your office going to be advocating for inclusion of supplemental rural broadband in the infrastructure package, or do you see an area in which we can support that?
Now, as I indicated in the infrastructure meeting we had yesterday, rural broadband is at the top of the list, inland waterways, ports. They know that broadband enhances economic development. The connectivity out here in rural areas and the executive order the President signed for rural prosperity, that's just as important as roads, water, sewer, and other things for economic development in today's society. Plus the sociological impact of just keeping kids there
Yeah.
where they're connected.